Hey guys, it's Lisa. I am back with what seems to be a very popular topic to talk about, and that is online relationships or relationships in the era of the online world that we live in, social media, and all that that means for all of us. It seems to be very pervasive. We all have to deal with it in some respect, whether peripherally or if it's a really core part of our lives. Those of us who love Facebook, as I do, find that we have a lot of relationships that have either started, and that could be romantic or platonic relationships, that we've started by meeting someone online or reuniting with someone online, meeting through a friend online, and so forth. And these relationships can become critical to our lives very quickly, and that's a great thing, and that can be something that is troublesome. So with that in mind, I wanted to talk about a little bit the different facets of relationships and how they're affected online and offline. So we have those relationships that of course have started in the regular way out of the social media influence, and those are usually our primary relationships. They are solidly built on direct communication, phone, face-to-face, and we create memories that are more what we would associate with traditional relationships. However, what's happened more and more over the last 10, 15 years is that we are, as a community, a global community, finding ourselves with this immediacy of beginning and of ending relationships. So that is fraught with all kinds of dangers. It's also a great way to communicate and meet. So I was talking to a friend the other day, and I found myself sounding as if I was in 7th grade. And I was talking about someone who I thought was also acting like a junior high classmate might. And I found myself discussing in depth the meaning behind certain emojis and whether they were appropriate to place next to comments, and what posts were appropriate, what pictures were appropriate, what is respectful, what is disrespectful when you're in a relationship. And the problem that I'm finding for me and for other people in this era is that the very definition of what a relationship is, what the parameters are of it, what the rules of it are, have become very blurred. And a lot of people, and a lot of people younger than myself and a younger generation, are finding that dating somewhat doesn't exist, which is kind of a sad thing. People no longer traditionally, in my mind, it's a sad thing, I should say. There is no kind of expectation to ask someone out. You hang out, you meet up. And that creates a distance, I feel. People are not having to be vulnerable. People are not having to be real in who they are, because people can hide behind the mask, so to speak, of their screen and of their texting. And it's very easy to impulsively decide what could be a major decision about a person or a group of people, for that matter, based upon very little information or information that is misconstrued. I've made these mistakes about other people. These mistakes have been made about me. And it's very hard to distinguish a lot of the time between what is real about someone and what's not. And I found that many people who are trying to enter into a relationship with someone that they've met online, that transition into the real world is difficult, if not impossible. And that depends on what forum they've met on. So if it's Facebook, that's one thing. If it's a dating site, that's another. But then we have those relationships that began outside and then are trying to navigate the very difficult rules and expectations that the online world creates. And it's very problematic, or it's not, depending on the relationship, depending on the people. And what I've personally found is that it can be very difficult if you have a relationship that started offline to then say, okay, let's say we're both on Facebook. I want it to be known that we're a couple, just the way it is when we go out to dinner and everyone knows, or a party, or our friends in our circle. And sometimes you find out that that other person, or maybe yourself, that one or both of you is not inclined to put it out there to the world that you're a couple. And that can be very revealing, and it actually can be a blessing in disguise if you find that that other person does not want other people to know. I've been on the side of discovering that someone didn't want to do that, and I've actually, honestly, not wanted to say that about somebody. So there are these strange things that we are now experiencing and confronting in this age, where there's a publicity to everything we do. There's a knowledge of that the greater world is exposed to about us, whether or not we really want that. So we have these decisions to make almost immediately about what we want to say about ourselves and our feelings about another person. And that can be very decisive in taking us in one or another direction with our relationship with someone. There's also the immediacy and the ease of changing the direction that you might go in a relationship, again, romantic or platonic. And by that I mean, let's say you go to a party, and at that party you discover that you really, really, really like this person, and you want to put a picture up of you with this person. And then you go to do that, and you realize, maybe I should ask, can I do that? Is this going to cause a problem? And it's so strange, because we didn't have these issues, obviously, years ago. And then there are, of course, the generations that are growing up with this being part of their lives from the moment they step into the world of relationships of any kind. And then, of course, there are those emoticons that can cause all kinds of fun issues. So for some of us, we don't care. Others of us didn't care, and then we discover we do in one or another way or relationship. So you might have a situation where you feel that if you are in a relationship with someone, then all the hearts in the world should go to you. I have to say, I like all the hearts in the world to go to me. Another woman might not feel that way at all. There are men who are extremely possessive of those heart emojis, and of all emojis, and all flattery, and of all compliments. And there are other men who don't care at all. So it's really not gender-based as much as it is just a preference of the individual person. And I think it really has to do with respect. So I think having a discussion with somebody you care about prior to entering into a relationship that's going to be out there in the world is saying, look, why are we doing this? What is the intention of letting anyone know what our relationship is? Is it for us? Are we just proud? Are we just excited about it? Do we feel insecure? Do we want to stamp our name on the other person's page and say, I'm with this person? So you have to look at what the motivation is. And unfortunately, Facebook has done studies, and I read a New York Times article years ago, that the most effusive comments that are made between couples are the ones where that relationship breaks up soon after. So if you see lots of loviness between particularly spouses, for some reason, they're usually on the verge of a breakup. And it does bring about a whole psychological thing that I love psychology. And it is fascinating to see that these couples that are kind of grasping and hoping that these words, these affirmations that they put out to the world, and this facade that they create, for whatever reason, they want that. Maybe they want it back in the relationship the reality that they're trying to create for the world. But in any case, what you see isn't always true. And so we have to keep that in mind. What I'm curious about with you as a viewer, I'd love feedback about this. I'd love to know how the online world has impacted, if at all, your significant relationships. And if it's helped create ones that are lasting, if it's really damaged ones, if it's caused arguments, if it's caused just wonderful experiences that can be forever memorialized on a Facebook page or Instagram. It is very interesting. And then there are all these other realms that I really don't get involved in that I know are really, really popular, and Snapchat and all of these other things that kids these days are doing that I just haven't been interested in. But primarily I'm on Facebook, and I do see it for myself and for my friends, the great impact that it has had. And I'd like to think it's mostly for good. Unfortunately, it seems to cause a lot of problems. So I really am curious to get feedback, because I'm learning with you. I'm not here to preach, tell you what to do or not to do, as much as to say we're in this together and it's all kind of confusing. And I wonder how you feel about this topic. So I'd love to talk about it further after I get some feedback from you. I will say, since this is honestly, that's my channel, I'd like to say, give a little anecdotal story that is an honest thing that occurred with me, is that I had an online friendship that developed very quickly and was very intensely important to me. And I'm not sure I ever really knew this person as much as I did want to feel that I knew this person in a traditional sense. And unless you spend, and this is a little bit of advice from me, I found unless you really spend time in a traditional sense, directly communicating, seeing the person, meeting the person, all of those emojis in the world are not going to replace the interaction that's needed to really get to know somebody, to sit down at coffee and just talk, see the gestures the person makes, to see the feedback that is right in front of you. There's an authenticity that you just simply cannot in any way replace from that human interaction of being directly in communication with another person. So as much as it's easier and convenient, and for me as a single mom, it sure is a heck of a lot easier to pick up the phone or to text somebody constantly. Again, it goes back to effort, like my last video, that love shows up. And to be attentive and to be real takes that effort of really being there. And I hate to say hanging out, but going on dates and doing those things that are quote unquote traditional, that in my mind really create an actual relationship. And the same thing applies to friendships. So to go to platonic friendships specifically, I found that there can be a lot of hurt feelings, particularly if you're not knowledgeable about, let's say, a get-together and then you see a picture of friends. That's happened to me on both sides. I've been really surprised when a girlfriend has been upset seeing a picture and saying, oh, I thought I would have been invited. And I felt that way too. So there is that, again, that knowledge that we have to always be aware of, that big brother kind of thing that exists, where what we do is immediately known, if you're at all online. So you have to be careful. You know, you have to be careful about what information you care about getting out there, how it could impact your relationship with somebody. Maybe you want to let somebody know, hey, you know, I'm getting together very casually with a group and we have a picture up. Unfortunately, somebody might be sensitive enough to that and be hurt. And then there are those problems with your opinions being out there. I have lost several friendships because of my political opinions, and as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. I have a very tough skin about that, and I'm a strong girl, so I'm okay with that. Other people, not so much. I've had friends who are deeply wounded by friendships they've lost over political opinions. For me, it just reveals what that person's always been about. So I think all of this amounts to, it's a new world. It's a new world, and we're all trying to navigate through this world and figure it out. And as long as we kind of have our own back and know who our true friends are, and know that information online can help us develop kind of an instinct about who those true friends might be, sometimes they're revealed, then I think we're going to be okay. But I know it's difficult. I know dating can be difficult. I know friendships can be difficult. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing how much easier it is as you get older, and how much less you care, and how many zero you give. But it can still be discouraging sometimes. But those friendships that are real, those relationships that are real, matter all the more when you realize how unique they are. That they're not easy to come by. So stick to the ones that count, and invest the time, energy, and love into those. And to the other ones, hey, you know what? Life is short. Not everyone's going to be for you, and you're not going to be for everyone else. So the right ones will be there, and you'll be there for them, and it all works out. See you soon, guys.